Hi Lucy, hi Justin. So nice to meet you. I'm Leia. I'm so excited to talk to you guys about the greatest hits. I actually saw it at South by Southwest last week.
Wow.
Nice.
So I got to see like the premiere of it, and I loved it so much.
Oh.
It
Thank
was just
you.
totally like right up my alley. So I first kind of want to start off with one thing that I really loved about this film was despite music playing like a central part was how much costume adds so much to the story. Especially with like both of your characters. The more they kind of like evolve through grief, like Harriet, the wardrobe starts to shift. And it kind of
Mm.
reminded me of this quote that Dan Levy said, where clothing says so much about who we are as people, but what we want out in the world and what we want others to like perceive of us. So I first kind of want to ask, how did the wardrobe of both Harriet and David kind of help you guys understand and build upon this world that Ned had created?
I love you for asking this. It's a huge part of it, the costume, the hair, the makeup, because you don't get so much exposition about who the characters have been before the moment that we meet them. And so the way that you do that is through seeing into their apartments, seeing the costume and the development, as you mentioned. And for Harriet especially, we only get those small pockets of time in the flashbacks where you get to see who she was, because the present tense for her is so colorless, and so she wears pretty much exclusively Max's clothes. And so you get to see those moments of like seeing him in the costumes and then her after, so you get that constant tethering to each other. We did little things like the nail varnish I was wearing in all the flashbacks. Max always has one finger of the same color, and like all these little details that you can add for the audience to find, but for us to know on the day just adds so much context. And then yeah, as you pointed out, the evolution, it's I think subtle, but it just gives the audience an understanding of the slow shift and this idea that the character is then reaching into their wardrobe and it's the way they want to be perceived. And I think it goes from her not wanting to be perceived at all, literally dressing for herself, for comfort, for nostalgia, into being ready to be seen again. So it was, with Olga, our costume designer, a huge conversation and process that I loved.
Yes, completely agree with that. And yeah, I'm so glad you noticed those subtleties because that's the beauty of what everyone is doing behind the scenes to sort of tell and shape the story. In the same way, Olga and I, our amazing costume designer, we had many conversations about David's wardrobe. I would send her reference photos. We would be chatting, and I remember the first meeting we had. She just had these racks and racks of clothes, and we just sort of sat there and said, like, this feels right. This feels like David. And I think what we came to was David loves sort of these vintage pieces. I mean, he obviously grew up in an antique shop, so he understands the power of objects, even clothes, and we wanted things to feel very lived in and things that had sentimental and emotional value to him. So for each piece that David wears, it's something that we created would be meaningful for him.
I also grew up in an antique shop. My parents sell vintage, so that was like the first
Whoa!
thing I
Wow.
gravitated towards instantly. But also, I kind of want to talk about the usage of like LA in this film, and in a way, LA kind of feels like a character in itself, even if it's just like in the background. And it's like a very much a love letter to like LA and the struggles that everybody goes through, whether it's grieving or falling in love. What do you guys think makes Los Angeles itself feel so transformative in the greatest hits specifically?
Ooh. I think it's part something you and Ned have both mentioned, which is that it feels like the locals version of LA. It doesn't feel so much like the cinematic Hollywood version that I've seen in films before. We went to locations that haven't been used so much and that feel like just well worn in and more authentic, and there's something so cool that comes with that because you get such a better insight into who these characters are, and you just get to see a different pocket of the city, and it's such a hub of music and celebration of live music. Uh, so it just added a totally new dimension for me finding the character, but also hopefully for the audience understanding her and her world and all of their worlds a little bit better.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that Hollywood, LA, is not just a land of movie folks and TV folks. It's also a land of music. There's so much amazing music coming out of Los Angeles and so many incredible indie artists coming out of Los Angeles, and I'm glad we got to explore some of those pockets as Lucy just talked about.
No, yeah, I totally agreed, and I love LA itself. The greatest hits is like centered around grief and kind of how we grow as people. When you guys first signed on, what would you tell the versions of yourselves that first began filming this project, something that you had known in the beginning?
Ooh,
Oh my God, that's a great
interesting
question.
question.
I think something along the lines of like it's totally okay to just submit to it. I think what I realized along the process of this film was how emotionally invested I got, and it's part of the joy of this job. It is so cathartic to be able to do that, but you get to enjoy the job so much more if you really just immerse yourself in it. And I did that, but I think that can feel, I don't know, I think if you're actively conscious of going in with that attitude, you can just embrace it much earlier. And also then you can be conscious of it, and I don't know how to articulate it, but just embrace it in the present tense and your surroundings as it's happening, rather than realizing it retroactively, and appreciating it, but not having like lived in it. That's such a garbled way of articulating it, but
No, that makes sense.
yeah,
That makes
submit
sense.
to it.
Yeah. I think I would tell myself to have fun. I mean, not that I didn't have fun, but
Wow. I tell myself to enjoy it and try.
no, I think you always you never know how special an experience is until after the fact.
Yeah.
And filming this movie with these incredible people in a city that I grew up in, it was such a special few months of our lives. And if I were to go back, I would say this is going to be so special. Try to savor every moment, as
Yeah.
cliche as that sounds.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you guys so much. I loved talking to you guys, and like congratulations on the greatest hits. And I like cannot wait to see what happens next in your careers. Thank
Thank
y'all.
you so
Thank
much.
you. So
Thank you for
great
such interesting
chatting with you.
questions.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course. Thank you guys. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hi, Austin. Nice to meet you. I love your outfit.
Thank you.
Um, so I want to say like congratulations on the greatest hits. I actually saw it at South by Southwest last month because I'm from Austin. So
Hey.
I got to see the premiere and I loved it so much.
Oh,
So I first kind of want to talk about like one thing that I especially really loved about the greatest hits was despite how much music plays such like a huge part of the story, another part that adds so much factors to it are the costumes. And so specifically with each character as they kind of evolve and become different people at the end of the film, their wardrobes like start to shift. And it reminded me of this quote that I heard from Dan Levy where he was saying how like clothing says so much about who we are as people, but also about like what we want and who we hope to kind of show ourselves to the world. How did the wardrobe of your character specifically kind of help you build upon this world that Ned has like created?
wow. First of all, shout out to the costume designer, Olga. She is literally just everything. And I would say I had so much fun. There are so many fitting photos that didn't make the movie that I am going to post on Instagram and stuff because I was like, how did y'all even find this? And that's honestly, too, the wonderful thing about being a queer character in a predominantly heteronormative space is that you can kind of be a beacon of self-expression in that way and wear funky things that help your character translate who they are. So yeah, I mean, it was a blast, and I wore some kooky crazy things that even had to get taken back. Like before, when I was on the stage DJing, they were gonna put me in this green like feathery jacket, which I thought that was so dope. But then the studio was like, I don't know, there's logistics of things like, is it gonna fly into his face while he's talking and things like that. So, but I always love it when the costumes of anything give self-expression and camp and let's do it. And so even the makeup, Donnie Davy and her team, I mean, the makeup was just incredible. And I love, 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 loved getting to play.
No, I'm a fashion student, so I was like, I have to talk about that.
Yes.
Um, so one thing I also really loved is how LA itself kind of feels like a fourth character, even if it's just like in the background, it's just like always there. And so one thing I was thinking about was like how The Greatest Hits is like a love letter to Los Angeles and what everyone is going through. What do you think makes LA feel so transformative and real in The Greatest Hits specifically?
I think LA in itself, between the weather and the history and the landscape, is so recognizable and potent culturally. Um, I mean, we have so much to offer. I mean, I say we because I've been kind of bi-coastal here for a good minute. Uh, but this movie definitely captures the essence of Los Angeles in that when they're driving around town, you can literally see like where they are. And when they're walking in a park or when they're at the Sears building, you can literally pinpoint, oh my gosh, like that's right there. And it's just like a great it's a recognizable film. I think it's great for anybody that knows Los Angeles to be able to recognize points in the city and place themselves in the film in their minds when they want to. So
We love LA. I'm a huge LA girl.
love LA. It has been raining, like, but you know what? It's a vibe. Like we haven't gotten rain in LA in so long. So I kind of like seeing it in its rainy vibe because it's just like it's like the Lana Del Rey song of the album. You know what I mean? Like, you know, allow LA to be a Lana Del Rey vibe for like 2 seconds.
I will. So another kind of one of my favorite things about this is it's a film that is it's centered around grief, but it's also very much a story about growth and kind of what we kind of experience as people, whether we go through like heartache or loss of somebody, or maybe like a loss of identity, especially in like a hard time. Um, and kind of how we can go back on time and reflect on it. If you could turn back time, what would you tell the version of yourself who like signed on to this project and like before you began filming, something that you'd wish you had known at the beginning?
Wow. Um, I would tell myself that you're gonna be on strike for about a year. So just so keep everything together. No, but in all seriousness, even though that was all serious, um, I would say even further back, like I would tell kind of like my younger self before I started filming movies to this capacity, I would say that you are on the right track and that you are not only doing what you need to do internally when nobody's watching uh, correctly, but you're also putting in the work that will manifest. I would tell myself, do not worry. Your timeline is set and it's okay. Because going into this film, I felt so supported. I felt like the cast was so supportive. Lucy Boynton, Justin Min, David Cornsweet, they are so supportive. Um, we went into the scene where I invite Lucy into Harriet, Lucy's character, into Morris's apartment, and you know we're talking about the episode that she had. We just kind of blocked it together and got our movements like you know what, like I feel like it's not like we should like move around and like do this, and we just kind of created it together and got our chemistry together, and that support and that collaboration, it was just so natural and effortless. So yeah, I would tell myself that you're in good hands and also just keep going.
Well, I love that answer. Thank you so much. Congratulations on The
Thank
Greatest Hits. I
you.
liked it so much. And also, I totally agree. You're a style icon in this.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Hopefully you can design something for me
Oh
down.
my God, I would love to.
Yes, let's go.
Thank you so much, Austin. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.